Good day, I'm Administrator Adam Southgate, and today's lecture will be covering the Abomination sphere's Cynrhon. Imagine for me, if you will, a creature that takes all it can from you, not only your energy and time, but also your resources, and even your food. It does this very slowly, whittling you down to a husk of who you were. However, all the while, you smile at its progress. A creature that hijacks that part of you that is supposed to be dedicated to the raising of your own children, while robbing you of the chance of living long enough to have them. That is what today's entity confronts us with, but before I get ahead of myself, I'd like to mention the Order's Discord to help keep our hunters organized. It's broken up into different roles based on rank and which Earth you belong to, if any. Along with this, we conduct our contracts through this system, so I hope to see you all there. Now, onto our Hunters update. Firstly, we have a new advertisement from Davis & Sons. Quickly being nicknamed by hunters as the Vampire Slayer's little best friend, the collapsing air-powered Derringer fits comfortably within the sleeve of the user, and using a pneumatic system can be right in the hand with a push of a button. But that's not all. The patented pneumatic system also fires the 32mm round for legal and silent operations. But don't you worry about stopping power now. The collapsing air-powered Derringer also contains a second dedicated pressurized cylinder, allowing the single round to be fired out at subsonic speeds. The patented pneumatic system also comes with a discrete side opening that allows for easy repressurization of the dual-cylinder system. The device can easily be refilled with the use of a car tire air pump, a scuba compressor, or even a standard bicycle pump. Your purchase of the collapsing air-powered Derringer also comes with 12 steel mini rounds absolutely free. That's 12 entities you can take down, covering the cost of the weapon 100 times over. Vampires, Klugia, cultists, and maybe even Retnir, all taken down with a single shot they won't see coming. Don't miss out. Grab your collapsing air-powered Derringer today!
Warning, the collapsing air-powered Derringer is only suitable for extreme short range, and is only built for a single shot before needing to be repressurized. The collapsing air-powered Derringer must be repressurized with an industrial-grade air compressor to reach full functionality. Anything other than this will greatly diminish the efficacy of this weapon. Davis & Sons makes no comment or promise as to the effectiveness of the collapsing air-powered Derringer on Abomination entities. Any hunter who attempts to use the weapon against said entities does so at their own risk. The purchaser of this weapon takes on full responsibility for any injuries caused by exploding cylinders, misfired shots into the hand, and fingers caught in the mechanism. Davis & Sons accepts no responsibility or liability for any injury or death caused.
Okay, secondly, the construction of the new centralized Order base of operations is well underway. Our main focus has been, and still is, the construction of an almost pseudo-town within the complex, specifically for the Dragonkin. While the work on the wing is far from complete, it is ahead of schedule, thanks in no small part to the Dragonkin themselves and their enhanced strength. Around 10% of the flats or apartments have now been complete, and some of the individuals have already begun to move in. Along with housing, we have also been focusing on the construction of a training facility at the site geared towards the Dragonkin themselves, as they have enthusiastically thrown themselves into joining the Order. Currently, this dedicated facility is unfinished. However, we have set up a temporary one upon the surface that has already shown promising results. As entities, Dragonkin are somewhat more durable and stronger than mundane humans. However, due to the size of their hands, plus a degradation of fine motor control, their use of firearms is sadly limited. However, they are far more capable with the use of melee weaponry, especially with the heavier variety, giving them a unique edge. Of those Dragonkin that were hunters prior to their transformation, they have already been reintegrated into their old duties, however modified to avoid civilian contact. Hunter Bronwyn is a fine example of this, joining the Hardy Boys team during appropriate contracts, leveraging her increased strength and maneuverability, as the Dragonkin can climb on surfaces that would be impossible for ourselves. We at the Order look forward to seeing how this mutually beneficial agreement progresses. You've almost certainly heard of creatures that take advantage of other species to rear their young. The brown-headed cowbird honey guides, many species of wasp, the cuckoo fairies, and even some fish practice parasitic spawning. This strategy, at least from our perspective, is seen as devious and even evil. However, this is a view coloured by human morality. Within the battlefield that is life, the only strategies that should be avoided are those that do not work. We as humans are thankfully free of this selective pressure for the most part, having reached a point where we have developed morality and even ethics. However, for animals, both of our sphere and otherwise, these rules of life still apply. The ultimate goal for these beings is to reproduce, passing down their genetic line to the next generation and making sure as much of their young as possible survive long enough to do the same. A great many strategies have come about to complete this goal, from creating thousands of young so at least some of them survive, carrying a single offspring and caring for it until it can look after itself, to even eusociality, where only one member of a large group breeds, but because all the members of the group share the same DNA, those who do not breed still have their DNA passed on. Today's entity practices a strategy called brood parasitism. This is where a species will secretly deposit their young with another species, allowing said victim species to raise their newborn, while the true parent is then free to continue its normal life. The cuckoo theory, as stated, also practices this form of reproduction. However, for them it appears more as a conscious strategy, whereas the Cynrhon have evolved to utilize this method of safeguarding their young. They do so with no malice or forethought. It's simply what they do to survive. The best way to explain Cynrhon as entities is to slowly work through each of their 5 distinct life stages. So, we begin with the first stage, or the larval form. The new Cynrhon finds itself blind and deaf within the upper story of a home, the window of the room smashed in, allowing the night air to flow through the house. The larva is small and tube-like, similar in size to a loaf of bread, lacking any external features save for a soft, mouth-like opening. The skin of this being lacks the normal chitin of Abomination entities, but is particularly durable, the high internal pressure of the creature causing it to inflate slightly. It resembles a very large mundane maggot at first glance, however, covered in an excreted mucus that it constantly produces. This substance acts as a thermal insulator, keeping the creature's internal temperature stable despite that of the room they are in. It is unable to move in any usable way, simply laying where it was placed, slightly undulating as it digests. This young larva is tended to diligently by the original human occupant of the home, being fed hourly without exception. Stage 2, the proto-nymph. At this point, the Cynrhon, after being reliably fed by its parasiticized parent, will have increased in size. Its internals will have also changed, developing a rudimentary auditory organ that allows it to sense movement within its environment. Along with this, 3 individual nubs will begin to grow out of the base of the body. These act as legs in the most generous of terms, allowing the creature to move slowly around the room it is within. These adaptations give it the ability to hide from any perceived danger, moving itself behind furniture and the like. The parasitized human parent at this point will be emaciated, seemingly at the point of starvation, but still giving all available food to the proto-nymph. Stage 3, the nymph. This is where the more extreme physical changes begin to take effect. The small, nub-like limbs will have now become far more defined legs, with 2 at the front and 1 at the rear of the creature. The head, once a fleshy lump with a single opening, has now begun to develop chitin, creating an almost beak-like mouth similar to a tortoise. While still thin, this chitin is incredibly sharp, allowing the Cynrhon to bite clean through bone. Its body has also begun to gain a more specific shape, becoming leaner in places and more defined, its overall size increasing to that of a large dog. The human victim will have now begun to regain their lost weight, but otherwise will not be caring for themselves. Stage 4, the sub-adult. At this stage, the changes happening to the creature's body have become more finalized, the original fat tube-like shape completely lost. The 2 forelimbs will have begun to grow chitin around them, sheathing them within, creating 2 spear-like tips, while the back limb remains chitin-less. The head's chitin will have become far sturdier, similar to most other Abomination entities. However, the edge of both the upper and lower plates are able to self-sharpen against each other as the mouth opens and closes. Unlike many Abomination entities, the Cynrhon will never be fully covered in chitin, with only the head and forelimbs ever developing it. Instead, it relies on its tough, leather-like skin to fill the same purpose. The creature's back will begin to swell at this stage, the shoulder muscles continuously tensing, then relaxing rapidly by reflex. The human victim, now weighing far more than they did when the larva was first deposited, lays in an unresponsive state in the same room as the entity, their limbs slowly eaten by the being. Stage 5. Adult. Once the Cynrhon has completely devoured the human host, the final transformation will take place, where a set of large wings will split through the skin on its back. At this point, the creature will leave through the same destroyed window it once was carried through by its parent, taking off with its wings and heading high into the air, being double the size of a fully grown human male. It will spend the next 5 years hunting prey of all kinds, using its now powerful auditory organ to lock on to people and animals far below. It will follow them from high above until the moment is right, suddenly plummeting downward with the aid of its powerful wings, sometimes reaching speeds that break the sound barrier. Their secondary brain is entirely focused on processing three-dimensional space, allowing them to subconsciously and perfectly calculate a swooping arc, the lowest point of which perfectly intersects with their chosen victim. At this point, the two spear-like forelimbs are held out in front of the Cynrhon, skewering the prey as it and the entity gain altitude. The lower limb is used to help secure and manipulate said prey while the creature flies. It takes large bites from it while still in the air. Once enough nutrition has been stored as body fat, the Cynrhon will begin to develop a single larva within its own body, at which point it will begin shadowing people from high above, looking for those it deems the most healthy. Once a suitable target is found, it will stay high above them, waiting until the human's nest site or home is located. Once this is ascertained, the entity will carefully land upon the ground, the only time in their lives that they do this, forcing their way into an upper story window by simply smashing it. This noise alerts the target human, who will rush to investigate. However, once this human shares a room with the adult Cynrhon, it's already too late. The human will wait patiently for the entity to give birth. Once this is done, they will immediately begin caring for said young, while the adult Cynrhon leaves to begin building its fat reserves to reproduce again. But how is this parasitism achieved? Well, the Cynrhon, throughout their entire lives, release a potent pheromone, the properties of which change depending on their life stage. During the larval stage, this chemical compound compels the human victim to hand-feed the creature any available food, while also causing the human to suffer emotional volatility when away from the larva. The human themselves will stop eating at this early stage, using up all the available food in their home by giving it to the larva, then spending all their money on acquiring more food. At the proto-nymph stage, usually all financial resources will have been depleted, and so the human is compelled to beg, borrow, and even steal to acquire more food for the creature, while again not eating themselves, becoming emaciated and sickly. They will also become more openly aggressive to any attempt to remove them from the parasite, as well as to those attempting to enter the home. At the nymph stage, the pheromone does a sharp turn, compelling the human not only to feed the nymph, but also now themselves. The victim will eat far beyond their needed amount, rapidly regaining their former weight and then quickly surpassing it. This is to create a living food store for the next stage out of the human. At the subadult stage, the compound now has an almost paralytic effect, while also increasing the level of clotting agents within the victim's body. This results in the human simply laying upon the ground while the Cynrhon slowly eats their adoptive parent while their body finishes developing. This final process can take weeks to complete, and so the Cynrhon will make sure its food store lasts throughout. Finally, the adult stage. The compound at this stage induces an intense, relaxed sensation, switching off the fight or flight response, turning the new potential adoptive parent docile, while the adult Cynrhon gives birth. The birthing process can take hours to complete, but all the while the human affected by the pheromone simply stands quietly, their eyes glazed over. This compound appears to have the same effect on other Abomination entities as it does on ourselves, which makes perfect sense as the brood parasite strategy the Cynrhon utilizes evolved to help them survive within their own sphere. We have attempted to harvest this compound as a weapon against other Abomination entities. However, while once it is within a victim, it is long-lasting, the compound decays rapidly after it is created. The Cynrhon produce it constantly, which is why this is not an issue for them. But how does one hunt a Cynrhon? Well, it very much depends on which stage of life they are within, with the difficulty increasing with each stage. However, no matter the stage, a gas mask must be worn to avoid the pheromonal effect. For the larval stage, your main issue will be the human or humans protecting and feeding it. At this early stage, the humans will not be overly aggressive, but will need to be bound just in case. After this is done, you can find the larva and simply kill it with conventional weaponry, as it cannot move or even defend itself. At the proto-nymph stage, the victim will become physically aggressive to any attempt to enter the home, using any available means of removing those they consider trespassers. This can be far more dangerous than it sounds, as they will attack with the same ferocity as a parent defending the life of their actual child. We at the Order will say that we would prefer that these civilians be subdued and bound. However, elimination of the entity does take top priority, and so lethal force is authorized against these human occupants at this stage. The proto-nymph themselves will attempt to hide from you within its room, so may take some effort to locate, but will otherwise be defenseless. At the nymph stage, the human host will have begun, if not entirely regained their strength, and as such will pose an even greater risk. So again, like with the proto-nymph stage, deadly force is authorized, though capture is preferred. While the nymph stage will still attempt to hide like the earlier stages, its head is now armored and its senses heightened. It will lock its head towards you, acting as a chitinous shield that standard weaponry will be unable to pierce. Also, if you get too close to the entity, between 1 to 2 meters, it will attempt a strike, springing forth on its now far more developed legs and attempting to take a rapid bite that again can cut through bone. We suggest tungsten rounds for this purpose, as this will easily break through the head chitin. At the subadult stage, the human will be paralyzed, but can possibly be saved if you arrive in time. The entity itself will be far more dangerous, with the ability to not only bite clean through you, but also being able to stab into you with those powerful forelimbs. The best approach in this case is multiple hunters firing multiple volleys of tungsten rounds into the creature, not allowing it enough time to react. Finally, the adult stage. As mentioned previously, the adults of the species only land to deposit their young. As such, this is the only window in which you will be able to assault them. We attempt to track the movements of the adults as they enter Welsh airspace, and with this method we can ascertain when they have chosen a victim to leave their young with. This then becomes a race against time for you as hunters to set up around the outside of the house at some distance, covering all upper story windows with long-range rifles, again with tungsten rounds. You're waiting for the creature to begin birthing its young. At this vulnerable point, it will be unable to flee, and so you'll be able to fire freely into its softer tissue, eventually killing it. You'll then be free to dispose of the newborn young. One thing the Cynrhon immediately brings to light is that survival in and of itself is not a noble thing, rather it is a desperate scrabble for purchase where any and all strategies are open to try as long as they work. Acts that to us would be considered vile or even evil are completely fair game, as there is no intrinsic morality to guide such behaviour. This is why I myself am immensely proud to be human, as in the face of our natural drives, we place restrictions on ourselves based on a sense of right and wrong we came to independently. Now, don't get me wrong, we fail time and time again, however, we, as far as we know, are the only ones to ever try and be better than our nature, and that, at least from my perspective, is laudable. But that will be all. Please like, comment, and subscribe, with Arthur's might and Merlin's wisdom. Thank you.